All right, all right. Good to see you all this morning. Have some more alarming news, unfortunately, and many news sources are saying that ultra processed foods increase your chances of bowel cancer. This is very bad news because ultra processed foods are very common in the US. They're used for snacks a lot. Americans consume lots of ultra processed foods. And so this is horrible news because we have people that are pretty much addicted to ultra processed foods. I mean, just look at these pictures. Of all these different websites that are talking about ultra processed foods. And you can see that unfortunately, ultra processed foods are the most common foods in America. Now, a lot of this has to do with work, school, very busy schedules, having to eat on the run, and when you're at the airport or the bus station or the train station, there is really not any healthy snacks, and the prices are very high. If they are considered healthy, so we have a serious dilemma. In the United States, we would have to overall change the entire system. We'd have to overhaul the system overall. Yep, we would have to overhaul the entire system overall because the system is shot. We'd have to restructure the lunchrooms. We'd have to restructure the hospitals, which is just unbelievable when you go to cafeterias in the hospital. It's totally unbelievable that you can be at a hospital where health is a major concern and the food is what, 80 to 85 cents unhealthy in the hospital. So look, to all my viewers and subscribers and people that watch, listen, you have to take your health into your own hands. You got to be very selfish about your health. You got to be very stingy about what you do for your health as far as somebody trying to question you in a negative way. If they're questioning you in a positive way where they want to try to eat better themselves, that's one thing. But you want to avoid conversations where people are telling you it's all right to eat something that you have already deemed not all right for yourself. You want to avoid those conversations. It's hard enough to change on your own, and the last thing you need is to be debating someone over this situation. So let's look at what's being said. Women under 50 who have a diet high in ultra processed foods stand a greater risk of having abnormal growths in their bowel that can lead to cancer, research suggests. Ultra processed foods are typically defined as industrially produced products that are often ready to eat, contain little in the way of whole foods, fiber, and vitamins, and are typically higher in saturated fat, sugar, salt, and food additives. While the concept is not without controversy, not least around whether all UPFs are unhealthy, studies have suggested such foods are associated with a host of health problems, from higher risk of heart disease to early death. Now, researchers say women who have a greater intake of ultra processed foods have a greater risk of the early onset of a common type of bowel polyp known as conventional adenomas. Dr. Andrew Chan, the lead author of the study based at Massachusetts General Hospital in the U.S., said the study was prompted by an effort to understand what was driving rising rates of bowel cancer in younger people. The vast majority of these polyps do not become bowel cancer. But at the same time, we know that vast majority of these polyps do not become bowel cancer. But at the same time, we know the vast majority of bowel cancers we see in young people arise from these precursor lesions, he said. Writing in the journal JAMA Oncology, Chan and colleagues report how they studied data collected as part of the US based Nurses Healthy Study 2, which began in 1989 and involved female nurses born between 1947 and 1964. From 1991, participants were asked to complete a food questionnaire every 4 years in which they reported how often they had eaten various items over the previous 12 months. The team studied data from 29,000 participants who had completed the questionnaire, undergone a colostomy, and at some point after, and did not have a prior history of polyps, inflammatory bowel disease, or any type of cancer other than non-melanoma skin cancer. These participants were followed until June 2015, by which time all had reached the age of 50. By then, 1,189 cases of early onset conventional adenomas and 1,598 cases of another type of polyp known as a serrated lesion had been recorded. The team divided participants into 5 equal sized groups based on their UPF consumption, finding that compared with the group that ate the least UPF, on average 3.3 servings a day, the group that ate the most, on average 9.9 servings a day, had a 45% greater risk of having early onset conventional adenomas once factors such as BMI, smoking, and physical activity, were taken into account. However, there was no associated risk of developing serrated lesions. The study has limitations, including that it is based on participants' recall of food may be complicated by difficulties in classifying foods as UPFs, did not look at the development of bowel cancer itself, and cannot prove UPFs cause the development of polyps. However, Chen said there were several plausible mechanisms that could explain the results, noting UPFs had been associated with metabolic disorders linked to obesity and type 2 diabetes that were associated with an increased risk of bowel cancer. He also said UPFs could promote a general state of chronic inflammation or might impact gut microbes and the gut lining. Chan said while it was likely the result would also hold for men, more research is needed. It doesn't suggest that if you eat UPFs that you are inevitably going to develop cancer. That's certainly not our message, he said, but it's a piece of the puzzle in terms of what might be driving underlying cancer rates. Fiona Osgood, the head of health information at Cancer Research UK, said that while the study did not directly measure cancer risk, it offered a useful insight into how diet might influence early changes in the bowel that sometimes lead to cancer. Look, and that's from The Guardian. Much respect to The Guardian. Go check out The Guardian at www.theguardian.com. Now, look. Let me break this down. It's like this. If you take your tongue and you rub the inside of your jaw, you will feel this soft flesh. Okay? Right here. Feel that? The outside of your hand, you have a rougher flesh. And so putting dry food, lots of dry food, which ultra processed foods are mostly dry. So let's just start there. Just constantly consuming too much dry food in a moist body. Your blood is moist. Your perspiration is moist. Your urine is moist. Your bowel movements are moist, or you have a hard time having bowel movements. You know I'm not lying about that. And so if you're having these really, really, really dry bowel movements, which ones are going to be more often? Dry ones or moist ones? Well, even your car and everything, moisture and lubricant does what? Helps everything flow. And so if you don't lubricate your body and eat food that is lubricating, how would you not end up with some type of abrasions that could turn into polyps, that could turn into cancer? Because everything is dry. And nothing that you deal with is dry. The earth is mostly water. Your body is mostly moisture. Your blood is mostly moisture. Your skin is moisture. Your eyeballs are moisture. If you get dry eyes, you start having problems. And so you would look at apples and peaches and watermelons as food that matches your body. The inside of your jaw is more like watermelon or peaches or cantaloupe than it is fried chicken. Chicken is fried and made crispy on the outside. Chickens aren't crispy on the outside. Chickens are moist. They have to partake so much water and so much moisture. Cows have to, these animals have to uh, drink water. They have to hydrate. You have to hydrate. Now, if I drink this tea and I eat some potato chips, the potato chips, as I eat them, the potato chips begin to absorb the moisture in my saliva to soften up the potato chips so they won't be so hard when I swallow them. So it's safe to say if I sit back and just chill and eat a big bag of potato chips, it's safe to say that's going to pull moisture out of my body. It's not going to put moisture in. It's going to dry me out. Whereas if I'm eating apples and cantaloupe and mangoes, if I make me some greens, what you got to do, you got to make them in water. So when you eat them, when you eat your spinach, it's wet. When you eat your collard greens, it's wet. When you eat your black eyed peas, they're wet. Most of the food that we're really supposed to eat has moisture. The food we're supposed to eat has natural ingredients, natural color, natural flavor. The ultra processed foods has artificial flavors, artificial preservative, artificial coloring. That, to be honest, we're walking experiments. We are walking experiments when we eat these foods. Ladies, you have to be moist. You cannot keep eating a bunch of dry foods, lady. The whole sexiness of you is based off of moisture. The whole concept of giving birth, even the practice of having sex, is based off of moisture. A sex will remind you more of peaches, not potato chips. Let's just keep it real, not Cheetos. Cheetos is not sexy. Okay? Apart from the U.S. Center of Disease Control for Disease, a report from the U.S. Center of Disease Control and Prevention confirmed that the average American gets more than half of their total calories, 55%, from ultra-processed foods. The report, published in August 2025, reviewed data collected between August 2021 and August 2023. Another staggering fact highlighted that children and teens get an even larger share of their calories from these foods when compared to adults. Nearly 60% of those between the age of 1 and 18 versus 53% of adults aged 19 and older. Per the report, the top 5 sources of calories from ultra-processed foods among youth were sandwiches, including burgers. They get 7.6% of their calories. Sweet bakery products, they're getting 6.3%. Savory snacks, they're getting 4.9%. Pizza, they're getting 4.7%. Right? The top 5 sources of calories from ultra processed foods among youth were sandwiches, sweet bakery products, savory snacks, pizza, and sweetened beverage. Adults eat many of these same processed foods at roughly comparable amounts, consume less pizza but ate more bread, rolls, and tortillas, accounting for another 3.1% of their total calories. Men and women ate similar amounts of ultra processed foods overall, according to data. The CDC highlights that a heavy reliance on ultra processed foods possess serious health risks, increasing the likeliness of heart disease and overall death in particular. Ultra processed foods. A recent study has identified a potential connection between the consumption of ultra processed foods and prediabetes in young adults. Researchers found that more than half of the calories consumed in the United States come from ultra processed foods. Can you believe that? Which include fast food, packaged snacks, and other items, typically high in sodium, sugar, and unhealthy fats. While previous studies have established links between these foods and type 2 diabetes in adults, limited research has examined their impact on younger populations. The findings highlight concerns about dietary habits among youth as researchers delve deeper into how ultra-processed food may contribute to prediabetes, a condition characterized by elevated blood sugar levels that precede type 2 diabetes. The study underscores the prevalence of ultra-processed food consumption across age groups and raises questions about its long-term health implications for younger individuals. Further investigation is needed to better understand the relationship between diet, quality, and metabolic health in this demographic. They already know the problem. They already know. So this new study has come out and it's alarming. Very alarming. First of its kind study may help explain why colorectal cancers are rising sharply in young people. Young people. As colon and rectal cancers in young people are on the rise globally, especially in the United States, consumption of ultra processed foods has been in lockstep. The fare now makes up roughly 70% of the U.S. food supply and nearly 60% of U.S. adults' caloric intake. And several studies have linked this growing trend with the risk of such cancer. This is brought by CNN Health. Shout out to CNN. So CNN is posting this study, right? A new first of its kind study adds that the growing evidence by suggesting eating ultra processed food may significantly raise the odds of developing early age non cancerous colorectal adenomas, growths and polyps in the colon and rectum that can lead to cancer. In the study, ultra processed food intake was primarily from ultra processed breads and breakfast food, sausage, spreads, and condiments. and sugar or artificially sweetened beverages. Partic- Participants with a higher intake of ultra processed foods, about 10 servings daily, had a 45% higher risk of developing nose growths by age of 50 when compared with those with the lowest consumption, a bit over 3 servings daily. The study, which followed more than 29,000 female nurses for a median period of 13 years, published Thursday in the journal JAMA Oncology. Our study isn't cause and effect, so we can't say that this is definitive, said senior study author Dr. Andrew Chan, a gastroenterologist at the Mass General Brigham Cancer Institute in Boston. But it does serve as some clues that what we eat may play a role. So as we move forward, I think it is helpful to think about where it is we can potentially limit our intake and lay the groundwork for future studies for us to be able to identify more specifically the mechanisms of the specific foods. To the extent possible, you should try to avoid ultra processed food and build your diet out of real whole foods as directed from nature and minimally processed as possible. Dr. David Cass, founder of the nonprofit True Health Initiative, a global coalition of experts dedicated to evidence based lifestyle medicine, said via email he wasn't involved in the study. The best diets lead to the best health outcomes, are comprised mostly of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, and plain water, added Cass, founding director of the Yale University Prevention Research Center in Connecticut. Read ingredient labels and be aware of how much sodium you're eating and how different foods make you feel. Ultra processed foods can keep you wanting more, whereas whole foods are more satisfying, experts told CNN in a February report. Non cancerous colorectal tumors usually don't have symptoms. Let me repeat that. Non cancerous colorectal tumors usually don't have symptoms, but when they grow large enough, they can cause problems worth seeing a doctor about, experts said. These include dark or bloody bowel movements, pain, iron deficiency anemia, unintended weight loss in combinations with gastrointestinal symptoms and blockage induced constipation. That's the first way you all know when your bowel movements, you're constipated, your stool is dark, something is wrong. You should be having bowel movements twice a day, sometime in the early part of the day and sometime at the evening, especially if you're eating 2 or 3 times a day. You should also get screened starting at the age 45, or if you have a family history of colorectal cancer, Dr. Robin Mendelsohn said. As the earlier issues are diagnosed, the sooner and more effective they can be treated. Mendelsohn is co-director of the Center of Young Onset Colorectal Cancer and Gastrointestinal Cancers at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. She wasn't involved in the study. Ultra-processed food consumption and health over time. Ultra-processed foods are made with industrial techniques and some ingredients never or rarely used in kitchens, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. These foods are typically low in fiber and high in calories, added sugar, refined grains and fats, sodium and additives, all of which are designed to help make food more appealing. Additives often include preservatives to maintain freshness and texture, or resist mold and bacteria, and emulsifiers to prevent ingredients from naturally separating. Other common additives include fragrances and flavor enhancers and agents for anti-foaming, bleaching, bulking, gelling, and glazing. The study participants were part of the Nurses' Health Study 2, an ongoing study established in 1989 to follow female nurses born between 1947 and 1964 to learn about the risk factors for major chronic disease in women. Okay? We've already covered all that. Look, it's really simple. You have to live a natural life. Trying to live a life that wasn't created naturally is not healthy. Okay? If you live in nature, you will know for sure that growing fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices is the easiest way to eat. Animal foods are more complicated because animals are a lot like people. Growing fruits and vegetables takes certain precautions for the health of the fruits and vegetables, but that's less complicated than the health of chickens, cows, pigs. That's a lot more complicated to keep them healthy. Also, they will consume a lot of your food. This corn and these things you're giving these animals could be processed in a way where you can eat them, but not ultra processed. Okay? There's a difference between processed and ultra processed. Juicing an apple is processed. Ultra processed is to take some apple flavor and mix it with some other flavors and put all different type of colors and all different type of ingredients so it won't go bad. That's why it's called ultra processed, not processed. When you cook, that's processed. When you put your food in a food processor, that's processed. So there's a difference between processed and ultra processed. And ultra processed foods don't do well in your intestines and in your bowels. When you're consuming things that are designed to do things to the ultra processed foods and put in your stomach, these things do things to your stomach. I always remember one day being a little boy sitting in the kitchen, and my father was cooking. He was making some meat or something in the skillet, and he took something out the cabinet. I assume it was some meat tenderizer. And he started putting it on there, and he looked at me. And you know what my father said to me? My father said, "You know what, boy? I'm gonna stop using this meat tenderizer." He said, "Because this is meat tenderizer." And he said, "But my stomach is meat." And he said, "If I'm putting this meat tenderizer on these steaks and on these pork chops and stuff and then eating it, that stuff is tenderizing my stomach. That's going to give me ulcers." This is my father, born in Alabama in 1931, telling me this in the 70s. Straight from Alabama, migrated to Chicago. And way back then, when knowledge was really new and they were still just doing reading, writing, arithmetic, my father began to see back then that the ingredients he putting on his meat he was putting on his stomach, the meat in his stomach. He said that to me then. And then that stuck with me more than it stuck with him. And him, I don't know what he did, but I do know my father had high blood pressure from 40 years. He was on medication the rest of his life. And in their last days, him and my mother didn't do well. They didn't pass away from natural causes. They passed away from me, as far as I'm concerned, from the things they've been consuming and the things they've been putting on their body. All of these powders and perfumes and stuff my mother was putting, we already see there was a big lawsuit over that. Which really me and my sister and my father, we should have sued over that because my mother was using those products and she ended up with cancer of the uterus. So, I mean, these things are serious. Bowel cancer is a cancer that develops in the colon or rectal, the large intestine's final section that absorb water and store waste. Common symptoms include changes in bowel habits, abdominal discomfort, rectal bleeding, and blood in the stool. Treatment often involves surgery and may also include chemotherapy or radiation therapy. Early detection through screening is crucial and can lead to more successful treatment outcomes. Changes in bowel habits, such as diarrhea or constipation, a persistent feeling of not completely emptying the bowels, blood in your stools or rectal bleeding, abdominal pain, cramping, or bloating, unexplained weight loss, fatigue, which can be a symptom of iron deficiency, and anemia. So, look, I laid the information out for you. All the news sources is posting this, that these ultra processed foods are raising your chances of bowel cancer. So, for those of you who are watching me, thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you know what's going on, and send this out to your relatives and talk to your relatives. And switch your children back to old school snacks. Old school snacks, grapes, peaches, plums, apples, oranges. Start cutting up that grapefruit in the morning and putting a little raw sugar on it or honey. Start giving your children tangerines and oranges, pears, plums. I remember we came up, raisins. Granny give you a box of raisins. You're going to have to introduce them to more fruit, and then they're going to have to eat more vegetables. You ladies, you're going to have to cook vegetables. You're going to have to stop cooking meat, bread, potato, and cheese. We eat meat, bread, potato, cheese. Meat, bread, potato, cheese. Meat, bread, potato, cheese. Think of your body like you think of your car. You need lubricants. Your car needs antifreeze. Your car needs motor oil. Your car needs transmission fluid. windshield wiper fluid. I can go gas, liquid. Your body needs liquid. Your body needs moisture. Stop. If you want to make it simple, just say to yourself, I got to stop eating what? Dry. I got to stop eating so dry. When you go in the potato chip and popcorn aisle, that's the dry aisle. Think about it. That whole aisle is dry. Think about it. The whole aisle is dry. The whole aisle. No moisture anywhere. Now, how can our children survive eating like that? There's just no way they can survive. It's impossible. We have to make some changes. And you got to realize that these stores aren't going to make the changes. Why would they? They're making money. You can't depend on them. You can't depend on the stores. You're going to have to do this. You're on your own because they're in the business of selling, 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 selling. That's the business they're in. They're not in the health business. So you're on your own. And the market's going to follow you. So when you change, the market will change. Don't be like people that I know that absolutely wait until they're just totally sick. They wait until they're just feeling horrible. And then that's when they try to make some changes. But it's a lot of times it's a little bit too late. You don't want to go through that. And it started to affect our elders when I was little. And now the ages is going down and down and down. You see Chadwick passed away in 40, 41. And now they're advising you to get checked for colon cancer in your 30s, but they don't want to say it. So they're trying to say in your 40s. But if Chadwick passed away from colon cancer in his early 40s, that meant he should have been checked in his 30s because it's going to take 7 to 8 years to go from stage 1 to stage 3 or 4. So that means he started developing cancer probably in his late 20s. And they're afraid to tell you that the age is going down and down and down and down. This is very serious. And women, your bodies are very you know, I don't know the word, sensitive. A female's body is very sensitive because you all make people, and you all's body is more interconnected than ours. So that's why when you all get pregnant, your breasts begin to change because it's going to get ready to make milk. Because your body is more interconnected. Because you make people, you formulate people. When a man and a woman has sex, the woman is the factory that puts the baby together. So your bodies are extremely sensitive. And what you consume is going to affect your children. It's going to affect your baby. And what's crazy is when our women get pregnant, they want some of the most craziest food. A lot of times, some of the most unhealthiest food. And this could be because they've already been eating it. So now the fetus is craving the artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, because it's already in your bloodstream from the time you had sex and got pregnant. So now you want me to go to the store and get you 2 pickles and a orange crush? Like an orange crush and 2 pickles and some potato chips. What? So you're having these crazy craves. Why? Why are your cravings for so much artificial flavors and artificial sweeteners? Because that'd be a large part of the cravings, be artificial flavors and artificial sweeteners. I don't know if you all, I got 6 children. And, sometime I've got with women that wasn't vegans and, they eat the way they eat, and I can't force nobody to, when I get in a relationship, I could stay with them and eventually they learn and they'll switch over. But, they might get pregnant, early in the relationship and they still how they are. Because I really don't push my way of eating on a woman. I just be an example and they change on their own. Because this is something you got to do on your own. This is not nothing nobody can make you do. It's self-awareness. You got to take care of yourself. So look, send this to everybody. Let them know this is serious. This is extremely serious. And eat more healthier choices, all right? Okay, V is for victory and vegan.